Hi, so today I'm going to tackle the subject of how to balance out your workload and not go crazy. This is an issue I've dealt with firsthand, I promise you. Obviously, I grew up in a very Asian household, so we were super competitive, and it didn't help with all my friends being super smart. It's not like I've grown up with major expectations. Nowadays, it's always a race to take the most APs and get the highest SAT scores and create the most nonprofits. And sure, while that may sound super alluring, it's only feasible if you're superhuman, which I assume you're not. But anyways, enough of that talk. I am going to outline some tips that have helped me succeed in school, but manageably. So let's go. First tip I would give is to don't do the work you don't need to do. Going to a super competitive high school, it can get so easy just to get caught up in the hype and feeling inferior to your peers and feeling that you have to take a certain amount of APs just to feel good enough. So a lot of people take on classes that they know they don't like. Like for me personally, I hate science. I could have taken AP Bio, but I just decided to take honors chemistry. Will AP Bio look a little better on my application? Maybe, but I want to major in political science, so I don't think it has a lot of relevance anyways. And honors chem will be a lot more relaxed for me, and I can spend that time onto extracurriculars, building my application. That small loss of looking better on a college application will save me so much mental turmoil in the long run. Same goes for extracurriculars. At the beginning of my sophomore year, I signed up for like 10 clubs, and I had this grand idea that I would put in all the work, and I completely did not do that. I totally underestimated how the club meetings would overlap onto each other. Like there were at least like 5 different clubs that were having meetings on Wednesdays, so I could only attend one. And a lot of these clubs I didn't really care about. They were super boring. We didn't really do anything at the meetings at all, and I didn't have a leadership position in it, so I felt super uninvolved. I found that by maybe like the second month, I was attending like 2 meetings. By December, I just decided that I would focus on one club, and that was Green Club, and I am an officer in that club, and I absolutely love it. And now that I'm not caught up with all these other like random clubs like ping pong club, key clubs, student ambassadors, etc., I can focus 100% on Green Club and put the quality effort that I know I can do. Number 2 is to know when to not do anything at all. So for the first tip, I advise to filter out the more important activities and the less important activities, and like choosing a right schedule. But even if you do have the right schedule, things happen. I think people tend to underestimate the possibilities of events that could occur throughout the year, whether it's an accident, a death of a loved one, illness, a breakup, anything could happen, and these events can totally have a toll on your mental health. And I think it's really important to remember that these are scenarios that are perfectly valid for you to hurt, for you to heal. What won't help is to ignore all these really ill feelings and just ignore that stress and move on and pretend like everything's okay, because at one point it's going to catch up to you and you're going to crash, and you don't want that to happen. You want to be in control. So if possible, know when it's appropriate to take 1 or 2 days off of school and just give yourself a mental break. I know that sounds super counterintuitive. Oh, here's how to do well in school. Don't go to school, but hear me out. If you take this day just to not think about all your responsibilities, like watch a movie, go shopping, whatever works for you, you'll be able to recharge for the next day. Because when you're under distress, that will most definitely affect any quality of work that you turn in, and you don't want that unless it's a super important assignment like studying for a final. If you can afford the late penalty, like 10% is usually what it is, and you can probably afford 10% off of an assignment, I would just take the loss, because ultimately even machines need to recharge too. If you keep working too hard and pushing yourself too far, you are so getting burnt out, and it's going to affect your mental health, and nothing is more important than that, because that's all you have in the end. It also might be worth it to explain your situation to your teachers. I mean, they've been teenagers before, and most of them are a lot nicer than you turn them out to be. If you had a good track record before, I truly believe that they will understand and excuse you for this one-time occurrence. On a less dramatic note, even in everyday situations, you still need a break. When you're studying, try to take 15-minute breaks between every 45 minutes to an hour, because if you carry on past that point, you're going to lose your focus anyways. So you're not putting in productive work. So what's the point? Just take that 15 minutes to recharge. This makes long cram sessions a lot more manageable. Tip number 3 is to plan ahead and organize. Methods of organization obviously vary from people to people, and it's perfectly fine whatever you choose to do. Some people like to use a bullet journal or an agenda or an app or something. I personally just use Google Calendar and Google Keep. I use Google Calendar to plan out my agenda. I'll color code different events. So for example, I'll have tests in red, essays in orange, volunteer shifts in blue. You get the gist. This gives me a general gist of what's coming up and what I need to start preparing for, and the color coding just makes it all that much easier. And you can also set notifications and reminders in Google Calendar as well. Then I just use Google Keep to create checklists and notes for different events. With the hecticness of high school life, it's so easy just to forget everything. So it's really nice just to have a checklist of all the assignments I still haven't done. I don't like to rely on memory because it fails so often. Tip number 4 is, when you do work, remove the distractions. So a big issue people face most of the time isn't the lack of ability, it's just procrastination. To be able to really balance out a hectic work schedule and a life outside of that is just making use of every single minute given to you. You don't want to spend all that time on your phone and watching videos, because of course then you'll run out of time. That's how you end up super stressed. I know, I've been there. So what I do when I work is I put my phone in another room and I turn it off on silent, and then I just create a feasible goal for me to complete in around 45 minutes to an hour. So for example, annotating a chapter. Personally, this motivates me to work more efficiently because I just want to get back to my phone pronto. And the best way to get to my phone pronto is to complete my work, and then I can go back to my phone and whatever I was doing. Tip 5 is to keep an eye on your physical health. Your mental health and your physical health are completely intertwined, and you have so many responsibilities in school not to be worried about your physical health. Treat your body like a machine. You really need to keep up with the maintenance and keep recharging it, or it's gonna fail. Obviously, I know it's super ridiculous to expect to be bagging in like 8 hours of sleep every night. I know that is not feasible for everybody, but at least try to get 5 to 6 hours, and while you're at it, try to get the most quality sleep possible. What I found really helped me was to wake up in between sleep cycles. So basically, while you're sleeping, you sleep through intervals of 90 minutes, and if you wake up in between those 90 minutes, you'll wake up feeling a lot more refreshed than as if you would wake up in the middle of those cycles because you're being disrupted. A really neat website I use to calculate when I should wake up or when I should go to bed is Sleepy Time. Besides sleeping and the most obvious factor, exercise. Another important aspect of your physical health is your diet. It's not like you need to eat super elaborate meals or super fancy foods. It's not like that at all. What I'm trying to say is to limit the amount of junk food you're eating and try to make sure you're eating a balanced diet, because I know there was a point of time where I would just binge on snacks and microwaved meals, and that was not doing it for me. If you're into cooking, I found that when I started to meal prep, I became a lot more focused and a lot more efficient in my work. Even if you're not into cooking and your parents still cook for you, just keep an eye on what you're eating. The next tip is to work ahead. I found that I've had a lot of dead time throughout the day, whether that be the 20 minutes I spend on the bus getting to school every morning, or the 5 minutes before class ends after the teacher has finished his lecture, stuff like that. So usually you would just talk to your friends or be browsing on your phone, but I try to utilize this time to work ahead on assignments. Even if I don't have any active assignments or quizzes or tests to study for, I still find things to do. I could be reading the next chapter of my APUSH book just to get ahead, or I could create a Quizlet for the next unit, or I could just try to get 1 or 2 exercises on Duolingo. There's so much stuff you could be doing that's not browsing Twitter. Every little bit helps towards lessening the load later when you get home. My last tip is to utilize online resources. So midway through sophomore year, while I was taking AP World, I was meticulously annotating all my AP World chapters every single night. It was super boring and it took hours. And you know what I found out a little too late? Course notes. They did outlines for all of the chapters in my AP World book, and I'm sure they do a lot for other textbooks. You might have to check, but even if not course notes, there are plenty of other websites that do the same thing. They'll outline the chapters in your textbook, and I still got the content that I needed. I just saved like 3 hours of reading. Utilize Spark Notes, Cliff Notes, Shmoop. All those resources, they're at the tip of your fingers, and they're super useful in last-minute situations. I'll definitely put a list of online resources I use to help me with my homework and stuff like that in the description, so you can take a look at them, and hopefully you can utilize them too. Okay, so that's all the tips I have for you today. Hopefully these have steered you towards the right path to balancing out your schoolwork. And also, as a disclaimer, these are just the tips that have worked for me. Everyone is different. So yeah, and if you have other tips, feel free to leave them down in the description below. I'd love to hear what you have to say. That's it for today, I guess. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like, comment, subscribe, whatever, and